All right. Hey, Presley.
Hey, Sam. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. We're here on this Saturday morning doing a live feed and a video. We have a special guest with us here at Patriots on Point, so I hope you guys are tuning in to watch for a few minutes this morning, but I'm going to let you introduce our special guest, Presley.
Well, Sam, thank you. And this is Sam, the man Manley. If you need anything done, he's the guy to get it done.
Rhino Hunter.
I'm Rhino Hunter, that's right. Presley Stutz here. I have the right to remain silent, but I do not have the ability, Trevor. And to use an old Ron White line from his comedy show. But ladies and gentlemen, we are very privileged today to have with us Mr. Trevor Loudon. Now, when Trevor starts speaking, you're going to say, boy, that's a real weird Southern accent.
Southern accent's going to come through, right?
And it comes from the southernmost part of the Southern Hemisphere.
It does, penguin country.
Yes, and Trevor is an accomplished author, writer, filmmaker, film producer, and the list could go on and on and on. But he is just quite the researcher. And I'd just like to welcome you, Trevor, to the program this morning.
It's great to be on, Presley.
Thanks
great
for having
to be
us,
on, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Trevor, I heard you speak last night, and when you started connecting the dots, and by the way, one of your books and one of your films is called The Enemy Within.
Yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about that, and we'll unpack it.
Well, what my basic thesis is that America right now is undergoing a Marxist revolution, a communist revolution. And the battle for America is playing out right now. And so what's happened in America over the last 50 years, the whole system has been deeply infiltrated by Marxist, socialist, globalist. And we hear about this in the context of the deep state.
Right.
You know, and Diana West wrote a great book, The Red Thread, where she looked at people who were involved in the anti-Trump Russiagate conspiracy, and you find that people like Comey, Brennan, Nellie, or the common link they all have Marxist backgrounds. They've all got communist backgrounds. And what I'm saying is that is extended right into your Congress. I say there's at least 100 members of the US House and 25 members of the US Senate. That's a quarter of each body. Are so enmeshed in neo-Marxism, working with the Communist Party USA, Democratic Socialists of America, the Iranians, the Cubans, the Chinese. They couldn't pass an FBI background check to drive a school bus. But there are no background checks in Congress.
I mean,
Go ahead, Sam.
Would you say that the Democratic Party, for all practical purposes, is basically the Socialist Party?
It's a communist party.
Yeah,
it's a Leninist communist party.
This is not the party of JFK and FDR.
No, and this is a sad thing. You've got millions of patriotic Americans out there who love their country, who support the Constitution, and they vote Democrat because they still think they're voting for JFK and Harry Truman.
Yeah. You know, Sam and Trevor, we know at least 72 million of us voted for President Donald Trump. We think it's upwards to 82, maybe perhaps 92 million with the voter fraud. But I want you people watching right now just to stop and think what Trevor just said. And he's done the research, and it's in his book, and it's in his film, and he can back it up with fact that we've got 1/4 of our House of Representatives and 1/4 of our United States Senate who have communist backgrounds.
Yep.
That should scare the bejeebers out of all of us.
And who said your vote doesn't matter?
Oh, your vote does matter.
You're right.
Your vote does matter.
Absolutely it does.
But they have managed over the years to take people, and you know, unfortunately, Trevor, a lot of people are sheeple. And they just continue to vote Democrat because Granddaddy and Daddy voted Democrat. But
Call them yellow dog Democrats.
Yeah, yellow dog Democrats.
And some days, in the old days, a lot of Democrats were more conservative than the Republicans. Larry McDonald being a great example from Georgia, one of the most conservative congressmen we've ever had, one of the most patriotic, and he was a Democrat.
Exactly. So, I mean, so it's just in our lifetimes, we have watched this metamorphosis take place. And, they've always said the way to boil a frog alive is you simply turn up the heat a little bit at a time. And over the last 50 years, we've watched what they've been doing. They're turning up the heat just a little bit at a time. But it's gotten to the point where the pot is starting to boil.
Right.
Yes.
And Trevor, last night you connected the dots with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I'd like you to unpack that a little bit for us because, folks,
I like to call her Camellia Harris.
Kamala Harris,
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
But God forbid, and they have not yet been declared the winner, except by the communist news media.
I was getting ready to say, unless you're going by the news media and the AP, I get messages all day long. The media's projected they're the winner. That's not how the system works.
Well, don't you know in the Constitution it says that CNN must decide the results of any election?
Oh, yeah.
That's the 26th Amendment, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh,
Do
yeah.
you not remember that one?
Yeah.
No, we don't. We weren't taught that in school, Trevor.
Sadly said.
Boy, it's sad. So would you unpack, and people, you need to really listen to what he's getting ready to say, because a lot of what he said last night, I need to hear it for the second time myself. I did not know. But talk to us about the connections that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have.
Well, yeah, and this is much deeper than them, but these were both chosen people. But if you look at Joe Biden, he's been sold as this moderate, old-fashioned Democrat, the traditional Democrat. He beat the horrible socialist Bernie Sanders. Well, yeah, he did, because Bernie was just too obviously communist and would have put too many people off. But Joe Biden, back in 1972, he was a 29-year-old city councillor in Delaware, and he decided, with no name recognition, and decided to take on a 4-term Republican incumbent, Hale Boggs, I believe his name was, and with a man with an 80% approval rating. Well, you'd think that would be a suicide mission, but he won because he had the backing of a group called the Council for a Livable World. Still exists. You can go to their website. They're boasting all about their relationship with Joe right now on their website. The Council for a Livable World was set up in 1962 by a man called Leo Szilard. He was a Hungarian. He was an atomic weapons scientist. He worked in the Manhattan Project, which gave you the atomic bomb that you used to defeat the Japanese. He was also a Hungarian communist and a massive security risk. Now, it has been revealed by Pavel Sudoplatov, a former senior KGB officer, that Leo Szilard was a fully recruited Soviet agent. And he was told, the message was passed down from Beria, Stalin's secret police chief, that he and his friends should stop spying for the Soviet Union and use their political influence to work for US military disarmament, so that the Soviet Union could win the Cold War, so the Soviet Union could defeat the United States. Now, so the man who actually got all the money that Joe Biden needed, got all the Democratic Party support, the volunteers, and the endorsements from all over the country that Joe needed to pull off this impossible victory, was a man called Albert Gore Sr., a senator from Tennessee. Wow. Some of you have probably heard of his son. He invented the internet and global warming. So Albert Gore Sr. was a protege of a man called Armand Hammer. Armand Hammer was the leading American Soviet agent of the early 20th century. Joe Biden owes his job to 2 Soviet agents, and he worked to gut the US military every single step of the way. When Reagan was trying to oppose communism in Latin America, Joe Biden was his worst enemy. Joe Biden was going to the Soviet Union on a regular basis, had a very close relationship with the old Soviet leaders. In my movie, Enemies Within, which is available on Amazon or my website, I have a clip from Joe at the 50th anniversary of the Council for a Livable World in 2012. Joe's saying, "Oh, thank you, Council. You were with me all the way. You got me elected. You supported me all the way. You helped me when I was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. You helped Obama and I," and Obama was a Council for a Livable World recruit as well. "You helped us negotiate the START treaty with Russia. That treaty was so good for Putin and so bad for America that Joe Biden had to that Donald Trump had to unilaterally cancel it. It was so disadvantageous to this country. But that's Joe Biden, and he's the moderate Democrat. The guy is a complete, has worked in the interests of Moscow and Tehran and Beijing his entire political career. He is that bad.
So you talk about Russian collusion.
He's been doing it for 40 years.
He's been
doing
doing
it since 1972.
You know, I find, Trevor, that, you know, the Democrats, when they start accusing Republicans of doing the very things that they are
Absolutely.
doing. And that's why Donald Trump, and there was zero evidence found of any collusion.
Yeah.
But it's what they've been doing all along.
Exactly. You accuse, this is Lenin, this is Zelensky, accuse others of what you're doing yourself. Now, Donald Trump said recently that if Joe Biden was elected, this country would become owned by China. And Joe Biden couldn't have picked a better running mate than Kamala Harris to help him do that. Now, I've been predicting that Kamala would be the real presidential candidate for over 3 years, because the same communists that gave you Obama and Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, who almost elected Stacey Abrams as governor of Georgia, and Andrew Gillum, another Marxist, as governor of Florida, these are the same communists who've been backing Kamala Harris. And they were engineering her to get in. Now, she flamed out because she just wasn't popular, so they had to use Joe to take out Bernie to engineer Kamala to come in through the back door. But she was always going to be their candidate. Now, her parents were both communists. They belonged to a group called the Afro-American Association in Berkeley, and they supported Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, and members of that group split off to form the Black Panther Party, which was a pro-Chinese communist terrorist group and the model for today's Black Lives Matter, which, of course, Kamala Harris completely supports. Her father, Donald Harris, was an affirmative action Marxist at Stanford University. They actually hired him as a prominent Marxist because they didn't have enough Marxists in the department at the time. Can you believe that one?
Wow.
And then Kamala Harris had an affair with Willie Brown. He gave her a lot of money, got her a lot of jobs in San Francisco that made her a lot of money for not much work. But Willie Brown, the mayor of San Francisco, had a deep communist background. He used to hang around with the same communist groups that Senator Dianne Feinstein used to hang around with in the 60s. He was still supporting communist causes well into the 2000s, well after his affair with Kamala Harris. And now he and Dianne Feinstein are basically communist China's best friends in the Bay Area. But the real kicker is this. Kamala Harris is the protege of a man called Stephen Phillips. He was a Maoist communist at Stanford University in the 80s. He married into the Sandler fortune of San Francisco, a $2.2 billion fortune, and he used that money to buy himself a lot of access in the top levels of the Democratic Party. And in 2008, he got $10 million together and did massive voter registration drives in 17 southern and southwestern states amongst black and Latino communities, and that's what got his very good friend Barack Obama ahead of Hillary Clinton. Steve Phillips is the man who got Kamala Harris elected to the DA's position in San Francisco, California Attorney General, US Senator from California, and now he's easing her into the White House. Her husband's law firm completely works for Communist China. She owes her entire career to pro-Chinese communists. So these are the two candidates, but it's all right because the New York Times tells us that she's a moderate Democrat. So these are the two candidates set to lead this country if, God forbid, things go wrong. You know, I think Donald Trump will prevail here, but if it doesn't happen, we're going to have two communists, two foreign agents, basically in the White House.
Yeah, Donald Trump, really had this figured out before it all happened, just for the fact that he had a mission going on election night to take out, to confiscate some servers.
Yeah, look, he's there's a lot going on behind the scenes. He put out an executive order in 2018 that was it could instigate some very harsh measures against anybody involved in foreign interference in American elections. And I believe, look, 100%, this election was run on the Democratic side by the Chinese. The Communist Chinese ran this election for the Democrats. So there's huge scope there.
What does COVID play into this?
Well, COVID, see, this is how I see it. COVID was the first step. All of this was designed for election year. This would not have happened. Now, we cannot prove that COVID was deliberately released, but we know it was genetically engineered,
right.
But we do know the Chinese deliberately spread it.
Right.
There's ample evidence of that. So what the goal was this. The Chinese
they made the virus strong enough to cause fear, but not strong enough to be devastating.
Yeah. So it would be enough to cause major dislocation, but not necessarily kill billions of people.
Right.
Because then it would, because they had it
Who
on
can
their
you
own.
rule if you kill everybody?
Well, that's right. But and it would have killed their own people.
Right.
All it was, it killed a few of their elderly, which they wanted to get rid of anyway.
Right.
But what it was designed to do was two things. Donald Trump's biggest strength was the economy. That's what was going to win him re-election.
Exactly.
And the Chinese Communist Party knew they couldn't handle 4 more years of this crazy guy in the White House. Because he had caned them on trade, he had stood with the Hong Kong protesters, he had backed the anti-communist candidate in the Taiwanese presidential elections, and that candidate won. They knew they were losing face amongst their own people.
Right.
And if you lose face in China, you lose power not long after. They had to take out Trump. So they released the virus to wreck the US economy. Now, normally when we have a pandemic, we are told an epidemic, you quarantine the sick and everybody else goes about their business.
Exactly.
But we were told by the World Health Organization you couldn't do that because there was evidence of asymptomatic transmission. So therefore, we had to quarantine everybody. Well, the head of the World Health Organization, which Donald Trump has pulled this country out of, was a man called Mr. Tedros of Ethiopia. And if you look at his CV, he's a former leader of that country's Marxist-Leninist, Maoist, pro-Chinese Communist Party. He's completely in their pocket. So Trump was faced with the situation. If you don't shut down the economy, all the media was saying we're going to have 2 million deaths, and he knew he would be blamed for every dead grandmother between now and the election.
Right.
So he shut it down to try and, get on top of the situation. And that wrecked the economy, damaged his chances. The other thing, which we don't talk about, is that Barack Obama did huge damage to the US military. While he was in control, the American Navy was building 9 ships a year, while China was building 60. He cancelled weapon systems, he put political generals in control, horrible rules of engagement for your troops in Afghanistan, etc., did massive damage.
Yes.
Meanwhile, China was building up like crazy. So Trump gets in, he knows he has to rebuild the US military budget real quick or we're in big trouble. So he starts to do that. But he can only do that on the back of a strong economy. Now, already 31 Democrats, led by the pro-Chinese communist Barbara Lee from California, have written a letter to the Armed Services Committee demanding big defense budget cuts in the next budget go-around because of COVID. If they succeed, and Joe Biden, if he becomes president, will completely gut the US military. If America has its military gutted, guess who rules the world from that point onwards?
China.
It's not hard to figure out, is it?
No.
The COVID is a military operation mounted by China to wreck the US economy, destroy President Trump, and destroy the US military budget so China becomes the dominant player on the world stage.
Yeah, it's, like I spent 30 years in the military as a Navy chaplain. 22 of my 30 years I was attached to the Marine Corps. And when you go in on a military operation, you always go in with air power first to soften the battlefield.
Yeah.
And guess what the Chinese did with this airborne virus? They're
softening the battlefield.
They softened the battlefield. They've got American people scared to death.
You got states that are requiring that you can't have more than 10 people
You know,
For Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving.
You know, at a time where Americans need churches more than they've ever have,
Yes.
they've been shutting down the churches. The whole thing is designed to demoralize America, to soften America up. So we're just starting to come out of that. Then we get all these riots.
Yep.
Well, this is because George Floyd got killed in Minneapolis, right?
Right.
No, it's because two pro-Chinese communist parties, Freedom Road Socialist Organization and Liberation Road, the group that created Black Lives Matter.
Wow.
Black Lives Matter is a Chinese communist operation.
Yes.
That was the second attack. So we were softened up with the COVID. Then the riots were the second wave, which burnt cities all over America and further demoralized and divided this country, virtually got us to the point of civil war. And then the third wave was the Chinese had massive voter registration networks in this country run by the same Liberation Road communists who gave you Black Lives Matter, and they focused on 7 key battleground states. And they claim credit for winning 6 of those for Joe Biden by signing up hundreds of thousands of minority voters. Now that's legal, but it's not legal that it's directed by China, because it's completely illegal for foreign governments to be involved in American elections.
Exactly.
So 3 waves.
Right.
The whole election year was run by China on the Democrat side. The COVID to demoralize, wreck the economy, the riots to further demoralise, divide us, and then the voter registration drives to mobilise the black and Latino communities to vote for Biden, to give him enough votes to provide enough cover for the fraud they were going to do anyway.
Which explains Joe Biden's lazy campaign.
Well, why worry? It's
Yeah.
all in the bag.
He
Yeah.
knew it was in the bag.
I mean, why come
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
basement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why,
You know, it's sort of come full circle with Joe Biden. You know, you said he didn't have any name recognition when he first started out. Now you can't recognize his name.
Well, that's right. You know, I don't even know if most of us don't think Joe Biden won the election. I don't even
No.
think Joe Biden knows.
He knows he didn't win the election,
yeah.
but he's gonna. Hey, the cake. It's like the cake got delivered to the wrong table. Hey, it's here. I might as well start
Yeah, I
eating
might
it,
as well
right?
start eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. But you know, this shows the. Look, if I was a politician and I was halfway honest, and I knew I'd been given that election by fraud, I would say I'm not going to take this.
Right.
You know, but that shows the complete corrupt moral character of the man.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows it was fraud. Half of America knows it's fraud. Half of the world knows it's fraud.
These people have been planning since inauguration 2017
Right.
to take Trump out.
Look,
Yeah.
the day that Trump was inaugurated, January 20th, 2017, the leader of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Steph Yorick, declared publicly in Washington, D.C. at a rally, our job is to make this country ungovernable, to destroy Trump. These are the people who started the George Floyd riots.
Yeah.
These are the people that burned Minneapolis, Kenosha, Wisconsin, Dallas, Houston, Tampa, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Salt Lake City, the Bay Area, and East Los Angeles.
Yeah.
These are the communists who did that.
Well, here's my question. They're sort of ignoring the sleeping giant of millions of Southern gun owners that are. What they think that we're just going to turn over and hand our guns over barrel first, or or butt first, and say, you know what, you won, so we'll comply with your law, or do they not think that it's going to take a lot more than?
Well, look, they're arrogant, and look, they think.
Because if it goes bad the way they plan for it to go, and we are ungovernable, and it comes to the point where patriots have to sort of stand up and take back their rights.
Well, I don't look. If I knew it was going to be a fair fight between the Patriots and the left,
Yeah.
I would back the Patriots 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But what's going to happen is if there is an uprising and it looks like the left are going to lose, how long do you think it's going to be before they call their Chinese and Russian and Venezuelan friends onto American soil?
Wow.
like
That's something we got to consider.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So
Or would it be like the United Nations, I guess?
Well, it'd be
Yeah,
under
yeah,
the UN
yeah,
banner,
yeah, that would be-
peacekeeping forces, but they'd be Russians, they'd be Iranians, they'd be all the enemies of America. We would be sent. You'd have Iranians patrolling Idaho, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
this sort of thing. So, look, we got to. I am so glad Americans have their guns. I'm so glad Americans have their networks. And we got to stand very strong in this, but we do not want to get to the point of a civil war.
Nobody wants to get to that point.
No.
Nobody wants to get to that point, but you don't want to shy away from that not being a
Right.
viable option if
Look,
it comes down to a last resort.
Yeah, well, look, the left understands. See, it's not that the left is anti-gun. The left love guns. They just want to have the monopoly on the guns.
Yeah.
They don't like you having guns.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
Well, it's
issue.
hard for them to control if the government doesn't have the most guns.
Yeah, that's
or have all the
exactly-
guns.
Look, the only reason you still have a First Amendment, the only reason you have any freedom at all in this country is because of your Second Amendment.
Right.
Yep.
It would have gone 100 years ago
Yep.
without your Second Amendment.
It sure would have. Well, Trevor, you have enlightened us a lot, and for a lot of you watching this, your jaw's probably on the floor. And there's a thing.
And I suggest that you watch it again just so you can catch
Yeah.
it all, because I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again so
Yeah.
I can listen to everything
and,
again.
and not
Yeah.
only watch it again, but please
share it.
share this video. This is probably the most important video that Sam and I have done.
I would say.
Yeah, and so share. But there's a thing called cognitive dissonance. When you're watching this and you're hearing this for the first time, your brain gets all muddled because you go, this can't really be true.
Yeah.
You know, but when you do the research, when you're honest with yourself and you follow the facts and follow the money, you'll see that everything that Trevor has been saying to us is true. So,
It's basically like putting a puzzle together.
yep.
If you can't put this puzzle together that he just laid out for us, you're not very good at puzzles.
Yeah, that's right. But so, folks, we're at a very precipitous time here in America, and we're on the edge of a cliff, and there are only two words that can save us, and those two words are "but God."
Yeah.
Okay, we have to work like we've never worked before, and we continue to do so. But God. And so we're praying fervently that over the next 20, 30 days, well, it has to happen before December 14th.
Yeah.
Because that's when the Electoral College meets.
Yeah.
Well, if it's
But,
what about if it's being challenged in court? That's going to be delayed. I would assume
It
it's
could
not going to
be.
be. It's not a hard
Well,
stop, would it be?
Well, I think the thing we got to look. I don't know how long this is going to take to play out, but I think we got to have a little bit of positive situation here too.
Yeah.
If Trump can win this, which I do certainly think he can, that is going to expose the Democrats and the left like it's never been exposed before.
Oh, yeah.
See, for 30 years we've been saying the Democrats cheat, they've been cheating, but they always say, oh, we prove it. Well, these cases go to court, we will prove
We're
it.
proving it.
And that will give the opportunity for President Trump and local state governments to put in some very stiff anti-fraud measures.
Yes.
The left will never be able to get away with this again. That will put the Democrats back 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So there's a very big positive outcome potentially here too.
Well, you know-
so we've got to stand up here.
What you're talking about December 14th, they're trying to get it done before December 14th, and I was in law enforcement. Here's my thing. If you present the evidence to the courts with the lawsuits, I think they're going to place an injunction, and December 14th is not going to be a hard deadline of where, we've got to have it certified by December 14th.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, this is going to go maybe into January before we could have the inauguration postponed and pushed back because we've got to get this right.
Yes.
Win or lose, whether Trump wins or loses, we've got to make sure the integrity of the election is 100%. And right now, it stinks like a can of tuna.
Yeah.
Look, if we don't get this one right, there will never be another free and fair election in American history. That'll be it for free
Yeah.
elections.
Yeah, right.
You're right. Well, Sam, thanks for your comments. Trevor, thanks for the information. God bless
Thanks,
you.
Presley. Great to meet you,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Trevor
Thank you.
Loudon, give them your website, please, Trevor.
TrevorLoudon.com. So it's just Trevor, Trevor. Loudon is Loudon. So TrevorLoudon.com. You can order my books, my DVDs on there. The best one is Enemies Within, my movie. It's been seen 3 million times on Amazon Prime, but they took it down 2 weeks before the election.